Number 48. Watched the live feed of the takeoff and landing. On the plane ride home, the airline had an option of watching the live feed of the takeoff from the perspective of the cockpit on a large screen in the passenger cabin. I am terrified of heights, falling, speed, sensory averse, remember, and thusly takeoffs. I forced myself to watch as we took off while I squeezed the hell out of Rob's hand on my left and Molly's poor little hand on my right. It was the first time I had experienced anything like that. It was so cool to get to see it from the pilot's perspective. I was able to stay present despite the fear. I love flying. I just hate the idea of flying, and I really hate taking off. I'm not nearly as scared of landing because we are nice and low to the ground. Watching the landing was interesting, but it didn't require the same level of bravery as the takeoff did. I'm not sure that it would have made my list all on its own. Sometimes bravery is seeing something from a new perspective. Episodes of Broken to Brave are released every Tuesday and Thursday. Thank you so much for listening and for joining me on this journey of healing and growth. If you want to go deeper into this story and hear it from a spouse's perspective, my husband and I have a Patreon-only show where we have an extended, behind-the-scenes discussion of every episode, which also posts twice a week. Here's a sample of our latest Patreon-only companion podcast.
We're just having this nice stroll at night. We're going to come up on Buckingham Palace. Yes. And we're walking, and all of a sudden we're like, there's all these like townhomes. It's real dark over here. And then it's blocked.
Wait.
What?
We saw the car thing.
Oh, that was bizarre. Yeah. As we were walking, all of a sudden we hear like cars going vroom,
vroom, and like driving around. We're like, what the hell is happening?
And then we pull up and they're doing some kind of
thing.
Rally or something. And
I don't know.
All these cars are out there and they're all like gunning it and going really fast and then coming back, but just like showing off, and it's super loud and there's a ton of people.
It was very weird.
And it was a little scary at first because you're like, what the hell? But then we just kind of watched it for a bit going, I don't know what this is.
And then the doorman came out.
Yes.
And he was an Irishman, and he said, I've been a doorman at this place for whatever, I can't remember what
and
type
he didn't
of
know what this was either. He had
something.
No idea.
And he's like, for like 40 years. And he told us, we heard all his life story.
Yeah.
And it was
great.
The coolest night. And we had the best time. And we just stood.
But he didn't know what this was. And he was like, what are
they doing? So he's standing there. He's like, I'm trying to figure out what the hell they're doing, But we had the best time talking to him.
Right.
Which is what we love.
Right.
The most when we travel and whatever, is like meeting people and having them
great.
tell. So he was just chatting up a storm, telling us all how he ended up there from Ireland and all his, his whole life. And he was like, I've literally worked at this place for my whole adult life.
Yeah.
And then we kept walking on.
Yeah.
And now we end up at this.
And I'm going, okay, it's right up here. And we're getting closer. And then all of a sudden I'm like, I think we're at the back of it.
Yeah, because we couldn't find it.
But we were right there.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the Google map where the arrow is. I'm looking at it and I'm like, I really think, because it was almost like a cul-de-sac where the things turned and it was all dark. And I went, I bet that's the back of Buckingham Palace. If you could go into the behind those, you probably have a fence and there's a courtyard back there, which is the back of the palace. Mm-hmm. But you couldn't get in.
It was really funny.
So then
it was really funny.
We're just laughing. We're like, and I think that was when you were like, well, let's just walk around the block. And I was like, it's not a block. No. It's like a mile to go up and around. So we started walking up this street. And here's the other thing that happened at that point. When we were there were little things that I had said, oh, I would love to see this, or I'd love to see that. And I was just checking them off like, yeah, we're not going to be over in that area. And one of them, which was the dumbest thing, is I had heard that the Kingsman, that there was an actual shop from the Kingsman, and it was the the high-end clothing store where the Kingsmen go in, and then they go in and they check in, and it turns into like a James Bond thing in the back. So cool.
Mm-hmm.
So cool. And as, you know, it's the front for the Kingsmen, but they call it Kingsmen.
Mm-hmm.
So we start walking up that street going, okay, well, maybe we can walk around the block somehow. And all of a sudden I go, wait!
Where's the Kingsmen?
We're literally standing in front of the Kingsmen.
Oh my God.
So I got a picture. I was so happy.
We're the worst tourists. Like,
it
truly.
was the funniest. So then we walked a little further and it got really light. And then all of a sudden you go, this is the hotel from Notting Hill.
Yeah.
So we took pictures in front of the hotel at Notting Hill. And then I looked
That
at
was the Four Seasons.
Yes. And then I looked at.
Not to be confused with Trump's Four Seasons.
Oh my God. It wasn't a landscaping. London landscaping.
This was actually a hotel, a really nice hotel.
So I see, I'm looking on the Google map again, and I went, there is no way we're making it to Buckingham Palace because to go.
Oh no, it was the Ritz.
The Ritz. It was the
Yeah.
Ritz. But it was the Ritz landscaping in London. But it was so.
That's the Ritz Cracker High.
But you had to go so far out of the way to get back to go to Buckingham Palace.
Yeah.
And at that point, we're like, forget it. We'll come back and see it another time. We have successfully not seen any of the palaces, even though we were staying 3 blocks from one.
Yes.
We have successfully not seen any of them.
Because we are the worst tourists.
Because we're the worst, but we found the Kingsman thing, and we found Cockfosters. So
we didn't really see any. Like we were by Tower Bridge, London Bridge, and we did like the Eye and stuff like that. But like otherwise, we really just lived like people live there.
Right. Well,
like,
that was what we wanted to do.
Went to restaurants. We just kind of wandered.
To hear the rest of this episode and get other exclusives, become a patron to Broken to Brave at patreon.com. You can also follow my blog at brokentobrave.com for even more insights and engaging content. Links are in the show notes. Broken to Brave is a production of Southgate Media Group, hosted and written by me, Martha Southgate. Thank you so much for listening. Now go do something brave.